Hey! It's
Evening.
Ed. Bring your mic in, Ed. Bring your mic in.
Oh, God,
Sorry.
go again.
Yeah, that's it. That's better.
Sake.
That's better.
Why does that always have to happen just after we go on freaking broadcast or whatever the hell we call it?
Yeah, well, because you go and change things at the last minute,
I
don't you?
ain't change anything. Wanker.
Of some repute. Of some repute.
Ah,
Anyway.
fucking northern monkeys.
Oh, don't call me a northerner. I'm not northern.
Well, you're pretty fucking north.
No, I may be north, but I'm not northern. You can't call a Scotsman a northerner. The people in Newcastle and places like that will take offence to stuff like that.
No, everything north of London is basically Mordor.
Oh, everything north of London, yeah. There be wildlings. Here be wildlings.
Oh, it's the frickin' White Walkers we've got to worry about.
Yeah. Oh, come to that. Well, yeah. It's been snowing in the Cairngorms for something like the last 10 days. Freaking ridiculous. Wow. I mean, people go on about it, but to be fair, you know, snow in June's not unknown.
No, it's not. It's not unknown. But at the same time, we've got the Met Office gaslighting us that everything is so warm that it's like the warmest June. I tell you what, they're gonna say, oh, it's been the warmest June on record, but only when we take the nighttime temperatures into account.
Yeah. Did you see the explanation? You didn't realise it was warm because you were sleeping, and although it was cool during the day because the clouds were keeping the sun at bay, right? They wouldn't let the heat out at night, so it stayed. But it wasn't warm during the day. I can understand that if it had been warm during the day, but it's like 10 degrees here.
The system that they're now so out of whack with reality that the only thing that they've got any talent at anymore is gaslighting. The government does it, the Met Office does it, the media does it. They're basically if you don't.
We do it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say we, I don't mean you and I mean people. Well, some of the people we're going to talk about tonight are kind of gaslighting us because it's as if they're trying to purport that these things are real, and we'll go into the MH370 because it's a bit of an interesting one anyway, you know, because I mean this plane took off on a regular scheduled flight to China from Malaysia, and it was only it only just crossed over. Was it Malaysia it took off from, or? But anyway, it was a Malaysia airplane, and it only crossed over the island, and it kind of just disappeared off the radar, didn't it? Or it went awry, and then it disappeared off the radar.
Yeah, but the thing with planes when they disappear off radar is that normally you see them going down, and you see the altitude going down and down and down, and then civilian radars can only. I think I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they've got a height limit above the ground that they can't see past.
Yeah.
But with MH370, it just seems to vanish.
Yeah, and of course, if they must have turned the transponder off as well.
Yeah, but I didn't think that was possible. I thought because the transponder is generally in the tail of the aircraft, and it's not designed to be able to be turned off. But then there are also rumors around 9/11 that back in the 70s there was an anti-hijacking system that was developed.
Oh, remote control.
Yeah, which essentially used the black box to basically allow an external party to take control of the aircraft. The idea being to be able to land it, but I mean these days planes can land themselves.
They can
quite often because pilots every so often they have to do one of the automated landings. And I remember being on a flight. And we touched down at Gatwick, and it was a perfect
landing.
Well, I mean, the state of the landing depends on the weather. I mean, if you've got a whole shit ton of wind, then it doesn't matter whether you got a pilot or a computer flying the plane; it's going to get bumped around. But the pilot comes on after landing and said, "Oh, welcome to Gatwick Airport. I'd just like to let you know that the plane landed itself this time. We have to do this every few months for whatever reason." And so I thought I'd tell you afterwards.
Yeah. Right. Before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping. We'll say hello to the people in the chat. And wow, we have a stack of people have come over from Ben's alternative stream where he's covering the election. He must be a very lonely boy.
Oh dear.
This isn't going to go well tomorrow, is it? In the meeting, he's going to be throwing these toys left, right, and centre straight out the pram. So it's good evening, Shalini, Bex, Julie, Adam, Espresso Mechanic, Beats and Tapes, Journeying John, Militant Mushroom. Who else we got? Britmate. Bloody hell, we got everybody. We got everybody here. Ray, hi Ray, how you doing?
So why did you
and Spencer? Don't tell him, says Spencer.
seems a little bit daft to do 2 shows at the same time on the same night.
Spen's idea. I would say I said we'd just leave it, but or we'd do it for half an hour and then turn into this, but or you and I would start it and then we'd just turn into MH370. But he said no, I'll do it. So he obviously wanted to do it. We did say we would cover the election debates, so he's right on that point because we've started it, so we'll finish. To be fair though, they're pretty damn poor. They're not real fun at all.
The state of politics is just, they've resorted to just making shit up and spouting it online. And I mean, the Labour manifesto just looks like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, let's not get into politics.
No. Yeah, Ben's doing politics. If you want politics, go and watch.
Did I say hello to Bex and Yazzie? So there we go. Right, okay, let's crack on. Let's crack on with MH370, and I'm going to play a short. I have some short videos for us tonight. Yes. So we'll play these videos, and from anyone that's listening from YouTube, this is called fair use. These are from other YouTube channels. We're not trying to steal their content or purport it as our own. What we want to do is we want to display it and then comment on it, which I think is fair use. Commentary is covered, and we're trying to educate people as to maybe why sometimes they need to be a little more critical than some or less than others. But I think it's fair use.
We're just exploring different topics as well.
Of course we are. We're having fun, and plus we just want to be allowed to do it because legally we are.
Well, yeah, but YouTube gets all judge dready. It's like, the law.
I am the law. Although they do say that they have nothing to do with it, but it's their algorithm that picks up things on the stream.
So it's AI. Yeah, this is the problem we've got with all this machine learning and AI is that companies will be like, oh, nothing to do with me. Computer says no.
Yeah, computer says no. It's like I was in Lidl the other day and there was nobody on the tills. And I'm like, I'm going to have to use this bloody machine. And I went up to the machine and pushed a button and it said scan an item. So I scanned an item and put my bag down. It goes, take that off the scale. And I'm going, for fuck's sake. It's just, the whole thing's a joke. And I'm like, if I wanted to be employed here, I would have put in an application, not come and do my shopping.
But it's the state of the world, unfortunately.
Yeah, I bet they love me. I told Aldi I'll never be back because their system's even worse.
I'm not a fan of Aldi, I have to say.
Yeah, but I don't have a lot. Well, I suppose I've got Morrison's, but it's a further walk. Anyway, right, let's crack on with the first video. Here we go.
How could a plane larger than this 767 crash into the sea and leave no trace? Even as these grainy satellite images released today by the Chinese government show what could be debris, there is still no proof. An open sea mystery that has seasoned aviators puzzled. David Susi has been investigating plane accidents for 25 years.
There's something very unique going on here that I haven't experienced in my investigation.
Well, I mean, that there's been a lot of speculation about what happened to this plane, and Journey and John's right into it straight away. But I think I've got some. I mean, there's some stuff that we've been privy to, John, that maybe does away with your theory about it being shot down. We're not talking about the one over. We're not talking about the one over Ukraine. We're talking about the one that disappeared between Malaysia and China.
There's
but
another interesting thing about that one is that apparently there was some patent holders that were on that plane.
yes, there was.
And the patent was co-owned by Jacob Rothschild.
And he wasn't on the plane.
And
And
he
he's
wasn't
the
on the
only
plane.
survivor.
And he's the only survivor. So that does beg the question: is that who else may well have been on that plane? I've never thought I never thought it looked like it had been shot down, because you would see radar tracks of another aircraft, or you would see a radar track of some sort of missile, whether it was fired from the ground. I mean, it's also that particular part of the world is not known for shooting down aircraft.
Well, apart from, remember the one that the Korean Airlines flight that overflew part of Russia and the Russians shot it down? Was it the Russians or the North Koreans? No, I think it was the Russians. The Russians shot down a South Korean airliner. There was loss of all hands.
Yeah,
which was pretty poor.
Yeah, but we're talking about a totally different part of the world. We're not talking about.
I need to rephrase that. Sorry. I need to rephrase that. It was not the Russians that shot them down. It was the Soviet Union.
Oh, right. Got it.
Yeah. My apologies.
But I mean, there's also that strange video with the orbs, which I'm sure you've got for people to watch. But I mean, the simple fact is that we have a totally missing airliner. Now, there was a plane crash in the Atlantic. I can't really. It was probably a few years ago now.
It
was flying from Brazil to
the pitot tube, the oval speed, the one that broke up. Yeah.
And the black box ended up in thousands of meters of water, and they still bloody found it.
They did.
And these things, the black box is designed not to get blown up, specifically because it's there to figure out what the hell happened if the plane does go down.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they've never recovered the black box from MH370 is immediately suspicious. And more to the point, the fact that it just disappears, it doesn't lose altitude. The flight goes a bit wonky. There's nothing. There's no other radar tracks, no missiles or another aircraft or anything like that, and absolutely no debris whatsoever.
Well, is that true? Because I mean, what was that part of a wing that was washed up near Diego Garcia? And Diego Garcia itself features somewhat in the whole scenario here, because that's not far away, and that's a big American military base, isn't it?
It's also super secret. And
yes.
If you were going to divert the plane off its track somehow and do so in such a way that it wasn't visible on radar, however they've managed to do that, Diego Garcia, it's actually probably should be called the Chagos Islands.
Yes, it should.
And just a shout out to all the poor Chagos Islanders who got turfed out of their homes and sent to Mauritius so that the British government could give that island chain to the Americans, because the way those people were treated was absolutely diabolical to this day.
Well, that's par for the course for that neck of the woods, isn't it? I mean, look at the Bikini Islanders, the what's the other bunch that are off Japan? There's a whole island off Japan that's been taken over by Americans, and they've really disenfranchised the people that were there. I mean, the whole Americans just go in and wipe out the indigenous population in order to take over.
It seems to be what they're good at. But anyway, so that human rights aside, the fact is that there is nothing on Diego Garcia apart from this gigantic. I mean, the whole thing is basically just like a solid aircraft carrier. And so, if you're going to hide a plane, that'd be the perfect place to do it. You could put it in a hangar. You could hide it from satellites. You could strip it down. You could chuck it in the sea. You could repaint it. Do whatever with it, and nobody would be any the wiser.
I mean, I've been in an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. I think it wasn't Guam, because you've heard of Guam, because that's the American one.
Guam is the Pacific.
Yeah, yes. I've been on one called Gan.
Okay.
Right, and basically all it was an RAF airstrip, because we landed there en route to Hong Kong and refueled. So it was just an RAF base, and that's all there was. In fact, we actually had a windscreen change as well, so we're there for an extra hour.
Why would the bloody plane need a windscreen change?
Because it had a bird strike when we landed.
Oh, right.
It took out the windscreen. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, but
that's not bad if you think about it. You know, a jet full of passengers lands in Guyana, hits a bird on the way down, breaks a windscreen, and has it changed and is flying again within 2 hours.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I don't think that would happen these days.
No, but I guess the aircraft windscreens probably have to. I guess you can snap them in and out just because of.
I have no idea. No idea.
I don't know how common it is for birds to hit aircraft, but it wouldn't just be birds. You get bits of gravel or whatever.
Yeah, well, we've done that. We did that last week, didn't we? We had a few airstrikes on show, or was it the week before? That was the week before when we revisited 9/11. Yeah.
So the simple fact that we've got so far in this little mystery of ours for this evening is that we've got an aircraft, MH370, that had at least one group of important people that we know about. And the plane disappeared, and there was a bit of wreckage found, but nothing that was actually positively identifiable as having come from MH370.
And we've got to say it was even though it was a Boeing, it was fairly reliable because it was a 777. There's not been a lot of accidents with Boeing 777s. You know, they're a good aircraft and they don't have a bad safety record.
No. So that's where we're at now. What the hell happened to this plane? And obviously, we're not. The objective tonight is not to solve this mystery. We're not going to solve it.
Oh, we won't solve it. I think there's good indications though, and in fact, that's what I was going to tell you before the show started. That just about 3 days ago, some Texas company, Affinity or something, are offering a deal to the Malaysian government. A free search, no fee, unless they find the plane, because they reckon they know where the plane is and they reckon they can find it. They said it's in very, very deep water, but they reckon they can find it. And they've offered this deal to the Malaysian government. If we can't recover it, you don't need to pay, but if we recover it, you pay. And the people, the relatives of the people that were lost on that plane, are all for it, basically, because they'd like some closure, and you can understand that.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, nobody likes to think that they're sitting in a hangar in Diego Garcia.
Well, no, I mean, this is one of the things which you think that, okay, so if they make this plane disappear, what happened to the passengers? I mean, they just gas them, or I mean, did all these people die in a horrible plane crash and we just haven't found it yet because it's in 5,000 meters of water, which is not the easiest place in the world to try and search for anything. But at the same time, black boxes, the designers of aircraft black boxes take into account the fact that some of the world's oceans are very deep, planes fly over them, and the black box not only has to be able to withstand the pressure at depth, it also has to be able to broadcast some sort of signal that can still be detectable via whatever. So just to continue your story, did the Malaysian government take them up on this offer or not?
I think we're waiting on, this was only like 3 days ago, so right. I think we're waiting on a response, I think it would be foolish not to, but it would be quite good. It'd be quite good if they did.
I mean, given that there's no cost to them unless they find the plane.
Yeah.
And if they find the plane, then there's all sorts of insurance and stuff that will probably kick in. Anyway. And just to give families some closure.
Well, yeah.
And to kind of solve a mystery that everybody's wondered about since it happened.
So let's jump on to video number 2.
Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 disappeared in 2014. Shortly after, 2 videos hit the internet.
Right, so these 2 videos hit the internet. Now, I think the plane disappeared around about March, and these videos were, they first appeared in about May 2014, which is a good couple of months later. Now, there's no trace. There is no trace of the original video anymore anywhere. So all you've got is copies of the videos on YouTube channels, and one of the ones that's come up recently is this guy Ashton Forbes, who's been making quite a big deal about it and saying that, you know, I think he's been presenting some kind of math to try and indicate that this is a genuine, you know, I mean, you see that picture there. This is from one of the videos, which is allegedly a thermal image, but he's trying to indicate that his math indicates that this is genuine and that the thing was transported by government, right, by some government, okay, instantaneously through space, through
And
effectively a wormhole.
And also, just to add to that, he also claims to have created some sort of over unity energy device, and that he's claiming that it's some sort of gravitational wave, so that there's some super secret ability that the government has to manipulate gravity, space. Don't know.
Yeah. Well, I haven't done any research into that, but I'm not a great believer in anti-gravity, and in fact, I'm not a great believer in gravity as such. It's all electromagnetic, isn't it?
But what if the terminology anti-gravity is just it's just words being used to describe something that is operating on a level that modern kind of science doesn't have any kind of understanding of.
Okay, so the I'm going to play the videos now, and these there's no audio on them because I didn't think it was worth putting spooky music on it, because they had their own spooky music on it, and really, you know, you don't need spooky music. It's just a video of a plane taken from where, I'm not sure. So that's this is one of the planes, and
well, this is supposed to be MH370.
yeah, it's supposed to be. Well, it's making a kind of wild maneuver. Oh, and there's one of the orbs coming in, right? You see the orb now? So there's the second one, and there's the third. So we've now got the three orbs circling it, and then it's gonna line up, and then it's gonna go poof, isn't it? It's gonna go. It's gonna watch. It's gonna go poof. Yeah.
Well, it goes behind the cloud.
Yeah, and then it goes. Then it goes. Poof. There you go. Went poof. Yeah.
So I mean, that video raises more questions than it answers, but it does track with the other video, which is, I think, infrared.
Thermal.
Sorry.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Poof.
So
it went poof.
And I mean, supposedly, that video, certainly the thermal one, still hasn't been debunked.
Yeah, it has.
Has it? I missed that.
It's going to be debunked tonight again.
Right, okay.
Well, there's a couple of issues with it as a thermal image of an aircraft, and they made a not bad attempt at showing the door and some of the windows at least, right? Although I would have expected a bigger jet plume coming back from the engines, if the planes, especially given the fact that during what we are seeing, the plane, it appears to be doing some kind of turning maneuver, so you'd expect the throttle to be on to a degree in order to keep the nose up. I may be wrong. I'm sure Journeying John will correct me if that is not the case.
Oh, he said he had to go to bed.
Oh, right. Yeah, he said he'd been sedated. So, it was Ben actually put me onto these guys. the corridor crew, and I think you'd find them quite interesting, Ed. And it might be something you want to look into and maybe even subscribe to. I myself did. I think they appear to be an excellent YouTube channel. And if you think that this is an excellent YouTube channel, or even if it's just something you may occasionally dip into, then we might be worth a subscribe as well, or even a like and or a share. Just imagine that. Imagine what we could do if we were fed out to hundreds, if not thousands of other people.
That was very subtle. I like that. You did that well.
I'm getting better. Right, so yeah, where were we? I think we're on video 5 now, and this is where things start to pick up a little bit. Yeah.
Said that because these came out so quickly after the airline disappeared, that it'd be impossible to do these visual effects. How fast could you guys do these shots?
Real fast.
Yeah.
As little as an hour. as long as 4 to 5. You could do this in 4 to 5 hours.
Okay, so they're talking about creating a CGI render to replicate what you've seen there, and they reckon they could do that in no more than 4 or 5 hours. So 2 months is way easily enough time to generate a render and get it out onto the interweb. I shall play the next video. Oh, you're not looking impressed. You don't like the look of this. You don't like the way this is going. I can feel the vibe there. I think you're going. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced.
No, it's not that. I've
To
got
me,
bloody.
if we go back to that first clip, let's look at the background. Are we a satellite? Assume we're a satellite. Do you notice anything weird about the background?
Oh, that the clouds are not evolving in any way, shape, or form.
Nothing's evolving.
It's a still frame.
It's a still frame. Thank you, Ren. Hey guys, how fast do satellites go?
17,000 miles an hour.
Well, actually, I'd like to correct them there because I think you find it's 17,500 miles an hour, 17,500 miles an hour.
I would also question that gentleman's choice of eyewear.
Oh yeah, no, I think he's just being a dick, Right. But people do that. I mean, look at me and Ben.
The footage of the International Space Station.
Oh, damn!
Yeah, so you would expect some degree of motion with the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it was slow, you wouldn't. It does look like it's flying over a still frame.
It does,
Yeah,
very much so. When it's pointed out to you like that. And then there's an even bigger problem with the thermals, right? Because, and I haven't clipped the part, but thermal cameras effectively can see through water vapor and mist and cloud, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're not really tracking it, because it's just another cool object to them, so they don't see it. And they can effectively see through mist and water vapor. So if when we see the thermal, you'll see the contrail from the plane, but thermal wouldn't really pick up the contrails because by that point they'd be cool, and it's just condensed water vapor.
Okay, so I mean the jet engine doesn't heat the air up as it goes through it.
Well, it does heat the air up, but the reason the contrail forms is because the water vapor is condensing quickly, because remember the temperature up there is like -50, -60 degrees. So anything that comes out of the jet engine is going to be cooled down really quickly. And effectively what's coming out is basically water vapor, which is why we do get condensation trails, or contrails as they say. And we're not going into that other subject that we'll just leave that one. Right. So where am I on? I think I'm on 7. Okay, so here we go.
Thermal shot, right? What's up with that thermal shot? Thermal cameras, like they don't have grain. It's not underexposed footage. And if there's any sort of noise pattern, notice it's a fixed noise pattern. Yeah. It's the idea of like your image is under almost like a dirty lens.
How do you make it look like it's thermal? Well, there's a filter in After Effects called Colorama. What Colorama does is it goes, all right, let's take black to white, and instead of do black to white, we're gonna fill it in with different colors along the way, a rainbow, a spectrum. And then, that looks like thermal footage, it's just not accurate. However, in this case, we see the engines are hot, so maybe you go in, touch up the engines, give them track some like heat points on there. One weird thing I'm noticing with the thermals is on that shockwave in the second clip, Like, how cold is that shockwave?
Wait, because
Like, is that like a 0? And so I'm confused why it's so dark when, like, we clearly see the engines are like hot points. We're getting the yellows, the reds.
because if it's a super dark hole, why is it so bright there? And then
Well, he's actually got a fair point there.
That is a fair point. If it's really bright on one video and really dark on the other, and it's supposed to be thermal, and the darker colors are colder, then it's almost like they've flew into a giant snowball or something.
Yeah, which doesn't really.
That doesn't track.
No, that doesn't track at all.
And also with the thermal image, given that the plane was full of passengers, it's the point you made about the little round windows. Now, you could understand the aluminium shell of the aircraft being cool.
Yeah, but the glass should be kind of radiating heat, shouldn't it?
Well, at least you would see. I mean, they wouldn't be bright.
You can
red.
see touches of it's been attempted, right?
Mm.
And you would expect the doors to stand out more. They should be delineated quite strongly, I would think. You know?
And also the cockpit.
Well, yeah, and the cockpit actually is, if anything, the cockpit's duller than the rest of the plane.
Mm. And you would at least expect that, because the plane also has to be. I mean, they have to be heated at that altitude as well.
Well, yeah, obviously, and you've got to remember as well that these planes have a thing called an APU that sits in the tail, which is basically a very small jet engine that just runs to provide all the electrical power.
Mm-hmm.
So if the big engines go out, the APU keeps all the electrical systems functioning. There's no heat signature from the tail at all.
That's a fair point.
You know, and you've seen that classic Twitter misinformation picture of what appears to be a jet sitting on the apron with smoke pouring out the back of it, and people going, "Oh, they left the switch on for the contrails," you know, when really it's basically an APU that's not started properly and is pumping out nothing but white paraffin smoke. That's what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember that video.
Mm.
It always seemed a bit dodgy that you'd think that if they've got this super secret chemtrailing program, they'd be a little bit more clever than to accidentally flip a fucking switch in an airport.
It's an APU fire, mate. That's all it is. Or it hasn't properly fired up, and it's not burning the. I mean, planes run on paraffin, stroke kerosene. You know, it's the same thing. Effectively, it's just a bad start, you know. Anyway, right, so this is the last video, and there's other things to talk about after the video, so don't rush away, because there's more to this plane than meets the eye as well, and I think a lot of people have forgotten something that did happen, and I saw a really good documentary about this and how we were even looking in the wrong place, because it's nowhere near Diego Garcia. It's not even near the Indian Ocean. It's actually more likely to be in the Southern Ocean towards Australia. But we'll come on to that.
Okay, right.
I have damning testimony.
what? If you tell me that this is the shockwave.
Do we have this shockwave on our server?
We do now, actually.
Wait, what?
I found the stock footage.
Stock footage!
Yeah, rather, we didn't. Some people on Reddit did. This is a stock footage clip from the 90s.
Oh, hell yeah.
There's the clip from the video, and here is the stock footage.
It's perfect!
It's perfect.
Cinderella, baby.
Cinderella, man.
That's it.
Slipped right on.
Wow.
Yeah,
An ISA, dude, an identified stock asset.
Some people have said, you know, pixels don't match perfectly. And you know what? Of course they don't match perfectly. I don't have the exact settings that the artist used, but if you look at it, it's the exact same.
I can't, yeah, like I literally can't wear these glasses anymore. There's like nothing, it's just so debunked.
I think that pretty much puts Mr. Forbes' protestations about how accurate these videos are in the bin. Right?
Yeah, it kind of does. I mean, it's just the mathematical odds of being able to overlay some stock footage and have the angles all perfect, and I mean that's
It was those little curves. So the two curves, they fitted perfectly.
I mean, that's
absolutely.
the possibility of that, I have to say, is even more remote than the possibility that the passport in one of the hijackers' pockets that hit one of the World Trade Center buildings just happened to magically float down onto the ground, despite the fact that they went in head first. And so said hijacker would
be immolated.
Yep, kebab.
Yeah. So there we go. So let's come back to full screen. So I think we can quite safely say that those videos are pretty much CGI. In my view, if anyone thinks they aren't, then fair dues. But
I wouldn't say I was a believer, but I like all this esoteric thing. So
yeah. I mean, you want to believe. Want to believe. Well, you're a Fox Mulder.
Yeah, no, I'll take that as a compliment. But it's kind of.
I think I am too. I want to believe, but I can't.
It has to make sense.
Yeah, and it's like they always say, Ed, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Yes.
And if you're going to put a 777 through a wormhole to God knows where, then you're going to. In fact, hold on, isn't that whole plot of those videos the plot of the Langoliers?
The what?
The Langoliers by Stephen King. Plane goes through a wormhole and they end up in an alternate universe.
Right, no.
Look it up.
I'm not a fan of Stephen King.
No, neither am I. You can't write an ending because if I remember, the Langoliers never really came to a satisfactory conclusion. Yes, Espresso Mechanic says yes. The Langoliers is similar. Yeah, it pretty much is. That whole thing is the plot to the Langoliers. Right, Britmate says Scully was short, but she was fit. Actually, Scully was short,
very fit.
But she gets fitter as she's getting older.
Yeah, she's Gillian Anderson. She's I had noticed about her actually, and also the other thing is that she turned in because like her acting in the X-Files was always a bit meh,
ropey, yeah.
But you see her now, and she's
she's good, though.
I mean, her portrayal of Margaret Thatcher in The Crown.
Hold on, right? Hold on, Ray Greenwood. I'm not quite sure where this is coming from, but is there footage of such a thing? If so, DM me. I need to know. Inquiring minds need to know.
Oh dear. So, well, I do remember seeing someone in an early, very, very early Photoshop in the late 90s. Someone had taken Gillian Anderson's head and put it on a rather attractive dominatrix sort of body, which was doing the rounds when I was in my 20s.
That was like early 90s misinformation on the internet.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right. A movie? Oh, you need to tell me what movie it was, Ray. Come on, good grief, man.
Oh, he's just winding us up now. Right.
Yeah, I think he is. Right, so here we go. I watched the documentary, a real documentary, not like Gillian Anderson's fictitious nude scene. But anyway, I watched a real documentary, and it was all about MH370 and about Rolls-Royce.
Okay.
Because it was Rolls-Royce that supplied the engines for that plane.
Right.
And
that's not uncommon.
And the engines talk to the Rolls-Royce server through a satellite.
Oh, I didn't know that.
To tell them how they're doing and when they're due servicing and what their status is. And they report in quite often, like once every 2 hours or something like that. Even when the plane's in flight.
So
Rolls-Royce were able to produce a track off the plane when it wasn't on radar and show you where it was heading to before it stopped transmitting.
So where did they say it was heading to?
They said, well, remember they started searching off Australia?
Right.
They said it went down somewhere just round about the bottom of the Pacific, start of the Southern Ocean.
So I didn't actually know that about. So Rolls-Royce have got every single jet engine in the world that's made by Rolls-Royce.
Talks back to the satellite. It talks back to their server through the satellite.
Oh wow! So,
well, I don't think it applies to their cars, but
how come
you never know.
I mean, yeah, the Southern Ocean is the Southern Ocean.
See, that's the problem. The Southern Ocean's mental, and the Pacific's huge. I mean, people don't understand how. I mean, what is it? 70% of this planet is covered by water.
Yeah, and most of that's the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, and so people don't understand how big the search area then becomes, because they lost, the last transmission, the plane could technically have flown for up to another 2 hours before the next one didn't get through. So, that's a biggie, and I think that does. I mean, and Johnny John was still going on about it being shot down, but if a plane like that had been shot down, there'd be debris everywhere. It'd be washing up for months, if not years.
I mean, it would have had to somehow go down almost completely intact. Although,
if it crashed, but it could break up. It depends how quickly it went down. I mean, hitting water at high speeds like hitting concrete, because it's not terribly compressible. That's a problem.
That's true. And
that's true.
and I mean, to make a safe landing on water, the plane would have to be going really very slowly.
Yeah, it need to be doing a proper. And you saw that plane in the start clip trying to land, and parts of it breaking off as it hit the water.
Yeah, because we covered that. What was it? Sully.
Sully, yeah, that's right.
And I mean that was a river, and the plane was going very, very slowly because relatively speaking, because it only just taken off.
Yeah,
and he didn't have any engines.
Yeah.
And also the surface of the water
was flat.
Was well, not entirely flat, but it wasn't. I mean, wasn't. We're not talking Southern Ocean, so. I mean, you ditch a plane in the sea in the Southern Ocean when it's rough, and
your chances are slim, mate. Yeah.
And also the ocean.
Well,
is so
do you remember
enormous that I mean, any debris that might.
Yeah.
I mean, it could either still be floating out there somewhere, have sunk to the bottom, or has washed up on some nameless little desert island somewhere.
Yeah. Do you remember that plane that got hijacked and? Was it the Canaries or somewhere? They tried to land it in the water, and the wingtip hit the water, and the whole thing flipped, and the plane just fell apart. I mean, planes just aren't strong.
No,
because they don't need to be, and the stronger you make it, the harder it is for it to get into the air, and the more fuel it burns to stay there.
Well, the thing is that they are actually strong in terms of what they need to do, i.e. withstanding turbulence. And if you look at some of the stress tests they put aircraft wings under and stuff, they are actually designed, but they're designed to be strong in the air. They're not designed to float.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. They're designed to be strong where it counts, right? They're not designed to be, strong against hitting brick walls and things like that, because they're not designed to hit brick walls or water,
Yeah, or steel framed buildings.
Shalini's disgusted because two of the chaps in the chat room are still going on about Gillian Anderson and her accoutrements.
Okay, can we stop with Gillian Anderson?
Well, Britmate says he's seen the picture. So we need to know the name of the picture, Britmate.
Change the subject.
Oh, it's like being down the pub when you talk to us, isn't it? And these things come up in they don't. They shouldn't come up in the pub, but sometimes.
Well, we're talking pub, not locker room.
Oh, you don't talk about things like this in the locker room. That's a bit gay.
Shut up. Oh, God. Right. So we totally haven't established what happened to MH370, but I think, the Rolls-Royce evidence, but then you would think.
Yeah, but nobody's really picked up on it since, have they?
Well, and that's also what happened to the plane. I mean, why did this particular aircraft go down? What I mean,
well, that's a whole different kettle of fish. So, I think you got. I hate to say it, but most of these times when planes like this crash, something has happened that's either incapacitated the pilot, right? I.e., have they lost all the oxygen in the aircraft? Remember the Payne? What's his name? The guy,
golfer.
Golfer, Stuart Payne, was it?
Yeah,
Learjet at 40,000 feet or something like that, lost its oxygen supply, everybody blacked out, and the plane just flew until it crashed because it ran out of fuel. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I mean, these days they're on autopilot most of the time that they're flying.
Yeah, so that's yeah, but the autopilot that's where that I think that what would you call it that what would you call it that theory falls down, right? And that if it was on autopilot, would it not have just kept going to its destination? It wouldn't have turned around, flown down the other side of the island, and then headed off for Australia.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
So I think that kind of puts a kind of kibosh on that. So the next point, Payne Stewart, not Stuart Payne, Payne Stewart. So the next thing, yeah, well, a private Learjet isn't any different from a commercial aircraft. A private Learjet, in fact, a private Learjet's flying usually higher and faster. But anyway, a commercial aircraft that isn't on autopilot. So we're assuming it's not on autopilot because it's still turning and it's still making maneuvers. So therefore, one of the pilots at least is still conscious and flying the plane, or someone has hijacked the plane, right? But there was no indication the plane had been hijacked or anything like that. So did one of the pilots go nuts? I mean, that happens.
It does. I mean, it does happen. There's an example of a pilot that had, I can't remember who, what, or where, but there was a story that I read not that long ago about a pilot who'd had a mental health episode, and when his, I think he might have been the co-pilot, and when the pilot left the flight deck to go to the toilet, he locked himself in and crashed the plane into a mountain.
That's right. Yeah.
So I mean, it does happen. It's one of those enduring mysteries that, because we don't have any definitive evidence of what happened, and there's no evidence of the plane. So
yeah,
there's always going to be speculation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and also people trying to, I don't know, get likes on social media by creating a video that purports to be something that it isn't.
And that guy turns out to be turns out to be very aggressive if people, debunk his video and well, hopefully he'll be quite aggressive against us, because everybody he's aggressive against seems to get hundreds of followers and gives them a good bump.
Well, that's not necessarily why we're doing this, but
no, of course it's not. Because to be fair, Ed, I mean, initially you thought we shouldn't really be calling this out because this guy seems all right, but when you dig into him a little bit, he's not quite as straightforward as he makes out to be. Whereas we, on the other hand, wear our heart on our sleeve. What you see is what you get. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And I don't know. I mean, there's so many crazy people out there these days that I've just stopped trying to even understand them, because half of the population of this planet seems to have gone completely mental. But at the same time, one of the reasons that I found this story interesting is because of the connections to over unity energy, scalar physics, and some of the more esoteric. Because I know you're not a fan of over unity energy, and I mean the laws of thermodynamics would seem to
be on my side. Yeah,
but at the same time, I can't help but be reminded of how many scientific discoveries that we now consider normal, including heavier than air flight,
Yeah.
which 200 years ago they were saying it was impossible.
Oh, absolutely, and 100% behind you on that kind of thing. But there are certain things that people, I think people want to believe more than prove, and the thing is, just because you want something to be true is never going to make it happen. And
Yeah, but what I would also like to know is why any time that someone actually comes out with credible, it's like Tesla. He was probably one of the first, and Tesla always claimed that there was an infinite energy out there in the universe, and you could just tap into it.
yeah, but we talked about this, and
Yeah, I know,
we
but
agree that there is. But the problem is, it turns out you got to pay it back, and the more you take, the quicker you got to pay it back.
yeah, but that's anyway. The point is that all of his papers and all of his research
Yeah.
and everything else was immediately classified by the US government.
By Mr. Trump.
Yeah, and any time anyone, any kind of boffin comes out with, whether it's there's another good example. There's a guy that invented a different type of carburetor for engines, which basically dramatically increases the fuel efficiency of the engine, like
Yeah.
from like by a factor of what's the too much wine. Well, basically going from 10 to 100.
Right. Okay. Factor of 10.
Yeah, but he died a mysterious death, and his invention was never seen because they realized that if they actually released this, that all of the oil company stocks would tank immediately because suddenly oil becomes much less valuable if it's
Well, yeah.
you can use it much more efficiently.
And you've got to. You only need to go back to the actual invention of the diesel engine to see how certain interests win out over others. Because Mr. Diesel, who now has a fuel named after him, never ran his diesel engine on diesel.
It was designed to be run on hemp oil.
Yeah, or peanut oil, something like that. Yeah, it was designed to, and that's why diesel engines can run on vegetable oils.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they use the power of compression rather than sparks to drive the explosion. And
then there was that guy in the States who came up with a water-powered car.
well, it's a hydrogen-powered car.
Well, no, it's obviously, but you fill it with water, and he
Yeah.
created a super efficient method.
Yeah,
of
you
splitting-
crack water to produce hydrogen and oxygen, and then
Yeah.
you burn it. Yeah,
and it turns back into hydrogen and oxygen again.
yeah. It's freaking genius. It is
Yeah.
genius.
And then he
Why wouldn't
disappeared
you
as
want
well.
to do that? Because in this day and age, that's the ultimate green car, is it not?
Yeah.
Well, let's put some water in the car, and what comes out the tailpipe? Water vapor.
Sure. And then there's
Brilliant.
also scalar physics, which, if people are interested, there's a guy from the 90s called Thomas Bearden,
I was watching this.
who was a lieutenant colonel in Air Force, I think.
He was either Army or Air Force, one of the other.
Anyway, he was Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden, and he basically claimed to have cracked scalar physics, which again, it's not. I don't understand the physics.
It's a bit airy fairy, isn't it? With the fifth dimension and all this sort of stuff.
Yes, but then there's also, if we're going on the basis that UFOs have crashed or something, or let's put it a different way. We're going on the basis that there is advanced technology that governments know about that we don't know about, which is probably 20 or 30 years ahead of
Well, it will be.
what we think.
It will be.
So wouldn't it?
I think that's a given, to be fair.
I mean, wouldn't it make masses of sense that one of those things may well be some sort of energy device that
Just very possible.
would seem to defy the laws of physics as we understand them? And there's also plenty of,
Yeah.
I mean, things like dark matter. There's lots of contention about Big Bang Theory and dark matter. And,
the Big Bang Theory is almost discredited at this point, mate. Almost discredited, because there's just every day the James Webb Space Telescope is putting more holes in the standard model of astronomy. You know, it's just a mess.
Sure, and so there's a lot of assumptions that we make about everything. There's assumptions that we make about biology. There's assumptions we make about physics, about astronomy, and within all of those assumptions, how many are actually accurate? I mean, if you look back over the last 500 years of human scientific development, I mean, some of the absolute nonsense that we took as gospel, like bleeding people and leeches and various other utterly. I mean, you look at it now, but all I'm saying is that in 500 years' time, assuming that we haven't had the solar micronova and the whole of civilization hasn't ended, but
there's going to be one.
Well, yeah.
No,
so.
I mean, there's going to be a it's not a micronova as such. It's a recurring nova that occurs in a binary star system that's only 3,000 light years away from us. And you're going to be able to see it with the naked eye soon, right? Because it occurs every 46 years. So it's happening this year. So keep your eyes peeled. And it'll be bright enough. It will be bright enough to be seen by the naked eye.
Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that in 500 years, a lot of the stuff that we take for granted as being true now in science, they will probably look back in the same way that we look back at leeching and that kind of thing. And also, perhaps there are elements that exist on other planets or exist on the Earth that may be really deep and we can't get to them, or they're very rare, or whatever, or we don't know. Or we've got it and it's staring us in the face and we're just not using it properly. And perhaps... I don't know.
Sorry.
No, go on.
It's strange that you should bring this up, actually, because and I'll preface this with, I'm not a doctor, this is not medical advice or anything like that, but
We're
I was thinking...
physicists either.
No, we're not. But having said that, you know, it doesn't matter, because everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And
not in 2024, we're not.
Yeah, but let's face it, all the big inventions were made by people who weren't qualified.
Well, this is the problem with science. This is the
look at Einstein. He wasn't qualified to do anything. He was a patent clerk.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that the great discoveries never come from the mainstream. They always come from the fringe people.
The guy in the shed.
And unfortunately for so many of them, they're not even recognized as geniuses until after the poor bastards are dead. And the whole time that they're alive, they're being told that they're crazy. It's like Tesla. I mean, every single electrical device has something that was created by Nikola Tesla in it, but he died penniless.
Yeah, of course he did. Yeah.
And
anyway, as I was saying, right. So it was strange you should bring this up, because I was sitting thinking today, and I thought, you know, I think it was something from Pfizer that they tweeted, and I thought, because they're going on about new vaccines for cancer, and I thought, why do we think cancer is a disease, right? Because cancer cells are your own body, and they're obviously reacting to something in your own body. So your own body cells are doing something wrong, right?
And how much? Well, have you heard of German new medicine? There's a brilliant.
Yes, I have.
Did you watch? I think it was Space Busters. It was a lecture in German by Stefan Lanka,
right?
That was translated and dubbed into English by the chap from Space Busters, and that has some very interesting theories about why we get sick. I mean, because I'm not completely convinced in germ theory.
Oh, you're certain, but well, Ben and I do mention this on occasion. I think there's a degree of there's a degree of interpretation and a degree of leeway between germ theory and terrain theory.
Given the way that the world works, I wouldn't disagree with that. But I lean much more heavily on the terrain side of things.
Yeah.
And I think to start with, unfortunately, I suspect that in the future, I'm trying to say this really carefully so we don't get the channel nailed or anything.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
But I suspect that certain things which are injected into everybody from birth may not prove to be such of a miracle of science as a lot of people would like to try and convince us. And I think that they are actually responsible for an awful lot of the ill health that exists, like particularly chronic ill health. But I think we don't factor psychology into things enough, i.e. brain over body, because it's been proven over and over again that people have this almost miraculous ability to heal themselves. It's almost if the will to live is strong enough and the person makes the right kind of changes to their lifestyle, diet, etc. That it's been proven that people have been able to reverse stage 4 cancer. And they're
careful
also,
now.
Yeah, sorry.
But I know exactly. And in fact, I think
but we do have to be careful because ultimately, don't forget that in the UK,
it's illegal.
Exactly,
and it is illegal to say that you can cure that disease if it is a disease.
Which
the Russians have had some outstanding success with fasting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's a certain a certain pharmaceutical that was heavily banned and censored a few years ago.
Yes,
in
combination, did they use it on horses?
That was that one. But I've also seen stories of that in combination with another one that I'm not going to mention.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to get into any trouble, but they have shown to have an impact on the thing that we can't talk about.
Yeah.
But because if to my mind, if you start legislating against something, if you have to make laws
to hide,
if you have to make laws to say you can't talk about something, you can't suggest something, you can't explore something, then someone is trying to hide something.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's like the Holocaust. You know, you can talk about it in this country, but you can't talk about it. You can't talk about it in a negative manner on any kind of platform, and you can't talk about it in a negative manner in certain countries, or you will go to jail. There was a guy who wrote a book, an Englishman wrote a book, and when he went to Austria to promote his book, he was incarcerated and spent, I think, 3 years in jail.
And there's another German gentleman whose name I'm not going to mention either. And it's if you can't ask questions, and then when you couple that with what we see today about what's happening in a certain Middle Eastern country, and the way that the media and all the politicians, they just look bored. They just look like someone is essentially paying them to deny reality. And to go along with barbarity.
I think the situation in that country is way more complex than most people think. You know, most people I think look at it from a very binary point of view, and it's not quite as simple as that.
No, it's not, and there's also a lot of foreign influence, should we say?
Oh yeah,
in the whole thing.
And a lot to do with the region as well. But
again, you know, it's another one of those things that we have to sit here and
can't talk about it.
We skirt the issue because everybody, both of us and everybody listening knows what happens if you cross over that line. And what we've seen, particularly in the last 8 months, is a whole new level of crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, we saw lines being drawn by those assholes like 2-3 years ago, but this new line that was drawn 7-8 months ago is something completely different. And it's when that censorship becomes so rabid almost, because it is, some of them are almost like rabid dogs.
Yeah, Brickmate's gone on about certain recreational mushrooms that he may partake in occasionally. I mean, shiitake or something like that, you know. And I'd love to try it. I've never tried anything like that. I'd love to try shiitake mushrooms, but I wouldn't even know how to start.
Oh, if you want, you should. Yeah, there's someone in chat you could talk to. She knows who she is.
Oh yeah. I had a brief chat with her, but I have to actually go outside into things like meadows and look.
Well,
And then I'd always be worried about picking up the wrong thing, and the next thing you know, you're reading my obit.
well, there are avenues to procure such things if you're able to. But the point is, I mean, I personally think that everybody should have a psychedelic experience. I mean,
Yeah.
a good psychedelic experience. It's one of the thing about, again, we have to be really careful, and I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything except I am. But all I'm saying is that I found that it opened my mind in a way that I've benefited from ever since. And it gives you a perspective. It gives you, it's almost like you change your reality for a few hours. And
Yeah.
in doing so, you understand that the nature of reality is actually very fluid. And what we perceive as reality is really just the state that we're locked into. And that there are other states, and we just happen to be born and we grow up with a particular.
You ever watched
version of it.
You ever watched the series Fringe?
I love it.
Love it. I've just
watched,
rewatched the whole thing.
I think I've watched that from beginning to end about 4 or 5 times.
I've just rewatched the whole thing, and I love Walter.
Oh, he's brilliant. And
he's absolutely brilliant. John Noble's just fantastic in it, and I love the way he's always making himself concoctions to get himself through the day. And I know how you feel, Walter. I know how you feel.
But it's just like, oh yeah, I was feeling a bit down, so I just made up some LSD, and I'm just tripping. And then there's actually one entire episode called Brown Betty.
Yes, there was.
And it's a bit like Lost though, because it's one of those series, because it got cancelled. And they kind of run out of ideas towards the end of it. Anyway,
they did kind of run out of ideas.
After 5 years,
I didn't like the last 2 seasons weren't as good.
No,
was it the last 2 seasons when they went forward in time? You know, after they'd been ambered.
Yeah,
it just wasn't the same.
It's once you get to the whole reality splitting and alternate universes, and that was okay. I can go with alternate universes, but it just started to get a bit too wacky, where you've got visitors from the distant future and
the observers. Yeah, I think, although I'm still convinced that Stephen Flynn is an observer.
That wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I would not be surprised if they were observers, because if you actually had the ability in the distant future to time travel, and you wanted to observe, because if you look.
Well, look at that guy in that picture, right, with a modern haircut and what looks like a dyed T-shirt, which never appeared in those times. I mean, the guy stands out a mile. He just looks completely different like everybody else, and you think, he looks like he just popped out the 80s or the 90s, you know?
Yeah. But the great thing about Fringe is it explores so many different topics. And it's all relevant fringe science. These are all theories or ideas that people have had or whatever. And
Ray's only on season 2. Sorry, Ray.
Oh, right. We'll shut up. Yeah, no, we don't want to spoil it for anyone.
No, we wouldn't. That's quite brilliant. I quite like it.
But I definitely commend it to everybody. I mean, certainly if you.
Although I tell you what, though, right? There is no doubt, and this might surprise you, but there is no doubt in my mind, I would go for the red-haired Olivia any day. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, well, Also because of personality, because she's a little
Yeah,
bit
well,
less,
exactly. But
she's less of the FBI agent and the blonde
yeah,
area. But let's
yeah.
shut up now because we've got everybody interested in it. And the other series that I recommend people watch, which relates to AI, is Person of Interest.
Oh yeah. Personal interest is very good,
Mm.
very good. Jim Caviezel
Yeah, Jim Caviezel
and
what's his face from Lost.
yeah, I can't remember his
I
name.
can. He's a brilliant actor, but I can never remember his name.
He's in loads of things as well.
Mm.
But yeah, Person of Interest is very good and very relevant. Very, very relevant, I think, especially with AI coming to the fore these days.
Absolutely, and it also the series does tackle a bunch of questions that people really need to be contemplating in this day and age.
Yeah.
Particularly when it's just like the surveillance. I mean, you hook all of the different surveillance cameras into one giant AI.
Yeah.
Well,
and the other one that really warns you about AI was the remake. You know, the what would you call it? It's not a remake as such, a reimagining of Battlestar Galactica. You know, the one with James Edward Olmos and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant. I mean, and the whole Cylon thing was AI, which went awry and tried to wipe out the humans, and that's just fantastic. There's so many teaching points for a variety of different disciplines in that actual series that you could use it to teach leadership. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. But you just kind of hope some of these boffins that are developing this shit in this day and age actually sat down and watched those shows.
Well, see, the problem is that these guys are so up their own. They're just sitting in a lab coding all day and they don't have a clue what's going on in the real world. And this is why AI is so freaking bad, because none of the people programming it actually live in the real world. well, they don't, do they?
No, and it's also they're putting it under so many constraints, which I can understand why, because you don't want a machine to be able to just tell anyone how to build a bomb or create poisons or
but those constraints are applied by the social diktat of the people that are in charge of these companies, and most of the people in charge of these companies are banging their drum to the tune of, they're probably still banging it to ESG, even though that will be superseded by something else. But they're going down a route that is really being forced upon us by corporations that should have no say in how we live our lives. We should be telling them how we live our lives, but that's not what's happening. Corporations are ruling us. I mean, we're living in Blade Runner. We are in Blade Runner times right now. And if you don't see that, then just step back and have a look and see what's going on. We are living in Blade Runner times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you only have to compare what people in the media and the politicians are telling us, and then you look at reality. It's the weather. I mean, we got the Met Office telling us it's really warm, and everybody is freezing our tits. We're all freezing our tits off, and half of us have got central heating on. But no,
I know when it's warm and I know when it's cold. And did you see the latest? It's the massive amount of CO2 in the air is interfering with your skin receptors and making you think it's colder than it really is. No, it is not. No, it isn't.
It's just, and I mean, one of the reasons for the weird weather is that Tonga volcanic explosion.
And Iceland.
Well, Iceland not so much. The thing with
Tonga, Iceland keeps going off.
Yeah, but Tonga dumped trillions of liters of water into the atmosphere, and it takes a year or two for that to actually start settling. So one of the reasons that we've got all of the flooding and we've had rain for almost the whole year is actually something that happened on the other side of the world a couple of years ago.
And the other thing is, to sit on Twitter and bang on about weather modification and, the governments are doing this, the governments are doing that. Just step back, people, and think about this for a minute, because the weather system is so chaotic, right? It is so chaotic that even if you're trying to, you are struggling to tell what the weather's going to be like 2 hours ahead, never mind 2 days, right? So you're telling me that people are controlling that weather with a degree of accuracy that they can't even forecast what's going to happen?
No, I don't. This is the thing: is that I believe that there are a lot, and there have been since the '60s, because there's untold patterns that I can show you that relate to
Okay.
technology that has
Okay.
been developed.
You're
to,
right.
Cloud seeding, for example. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
but-
that's
right.
not something that
No.
okay. If we
Cloud seeding's fine, right? Cloud seeding occurs. Cloud seeding has happened, right?
But what about
The
the
British-
hurricane that
No, but
changed
hold on.
direction on 9/11?
No, but the hurricanes change direction all the time, mate. They really do. Tornado, they're chaotic. By their very nature, they're chaotic. But, right, so let's look at cloud seeding works. Cloud seeding has been used. It was used in China by the Olympics. The British government have said they haven't cloud seeded anything since 74 or something like that, right?
Oh.
And that's on their website. That's what they say, right?
Whatever.
But you know what? The ones that get me are the people that say, oh, it was a lovely blue sky and suddenly a plane went over and then we had clouds everywhere. Right. You can't see the fucking cloud that isn't there. You can't create clouds out of nothing. You just can't do it. Doesn't matter how much fucking aluminium you throw into the air. If there's no moisture there, you cannot fucking seed it. Just can't be done.
Well, I don't know what the hell's going on, but I do know that I wake up and there's a blue sky and there's planes going overhead
And-
dumping whatever is being dumped. And
The other
then-
thing that gets me, right, is people's memories. People's memories are shit, right? I mean, my own wife among them, right? Because she would turn around and tell me that, say April last year was really fucking
I
glorious.
didn't see
It was
those
dry.
trails before
Right?
the mid-90s because I remember when they started showing up.
Okay, but right, people turn around and go like, "Last April was beautiful," and well, yeah, or last April the sun never came out, and you look at the record, and it was 50-50, 90% of the time it's 50-50. People just have a shit. They remember the good times and forget the bad times, or they remember the bad times and forget the good times.
Well, the
People
fact
do it
is-
all the time.
Well, I mean, the simple fact is that the planet's not equidistant from the sun all the time, and it's the sun that
Exactly.
really drives the climate.
Well, yeah, and you've
so
got all the
sometimes-
Milankovitch cycles and I mean, how many cycles you got? You got about 3, and if they coincide, you're going to get extreme weather.
Absolutely, and when you do have something like a volcano dumping trillions
Mm-hmm.
of tons of water into the upper atmosphere, that's going to have an impact as well. And I think we're particularly this year, we're actually underestimating the impact of that because it takes time for natural processes to circulate all that stuff through the system,
Mhm.
because ultimately what goes up has to come back down again. But it's, I don't know. I think that the fact is that they're blaming humans for something that is actually related to the sun and is not something we can do anything about.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they're trying to make us all drive electric
Oh,
cars.
yeah, I know.
which
I
are
mean,
like-
that's just ridiculous. I mean, and the other thing is, we live in a maritime climate. And the maritime climate generally is very damp, okay? And our weather predominantly comes from the Atlantic, from the west. And all you have to do is look at the satellite photos and see the amount of fucking cloud that comes across the Atlantic. And you know where it turns up? Scotland.
Which is all why you people are just such bright, shining examples of humanity.
It's like somebody posted the other day saying, it doesn't look like we're going to have a summer this year. Have you fucking been to Scotland?
And then when you
You know,
do get
I
a
mean,
bit of
we
summer
still talk about 1976. We still talk about it.
yeah, but the thing about Scotland is that as soon as there is a bit of nice weather, everyone gets eaten alive by midges. Oh dear. Right. Where are we at?
Fuck knows.
Don't know. We've strayed from MH370 quite a lot now.
Yeah, we have. We have.
And we've covered alternative.
Well,
energy.
I think it's probably time to go.
Yeah, I don't really have that much more to
To add.
contribute. I don't think.
But I've, as always, I have enjoyed our little chat, and I think it's been good. And I've
Absolutely.
enjoyed you people out there. It's been nice.
Yeah, no, it's been nice. Chat's been active.
Yeah, it has. So there you go.
What are we going to talk about next week?
Your choice. What do you want to talk about?
Let's see what happens, because the current events. We'll do a current events one next week, because we're kind of alternating.
Yeah.
So let's see what the week throws up. I'm sure Clan World will hit us with something.
Okay. Right.
It's been fun. Thanks,
It
guys.
has. It's been great for you.